Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 50 of the Squad Room. I'm your host, Garrett Tesla. I'm an active duty patrol sergeant in Southern California. The Squad Room is about developing, optimizing, and maintaining the health and wellness of law enforcement officers all around the world. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. The show is about all aspects of health. Today's episode is, I guess, really about it's a mental and emotional health story. It's not a positive story by any means, but it is a fascinating one. My guest is one of the most corrupt, or I'll say was, one of the most corrupt cops I've ever heard of. And his story today is his goal, or it's his mission now to teach others how to avoid the same pitfalls that he fell in. And it's quite a story. And as I tell it when we're talking, he emailed me his story, and I didn't believe it. I thought, there's no way that one person dealt with all this. This just can't be true. I mean, the story goes from being recruited out of his probationary year at LAPD into a juvenile narcotics unit, and then it snowballs from there. And anyone who is in West Coast law enforcement, but in law enforcement in general, has probably heard of the Rampart Scandal. And it's one of the most famous police scandals out there. And I think I need to kind of go through what the Rampart Scandal was so you understand his role in this and in the culture of the LAPD at the time, specifically the Rampart Division. Rampart is an area of Los Angeles, and it's a patrol station within LAPD. And my guest, Ruben Palomares, was one of the most prolific of the dirty cops. And he admits and talks about it both in his testimony in federal court and here on the show. I struggled with having him on the show, and if I wanted to have him on the show, this is typically it's meant to be a very positive podcast, very informative, very evidence-based. And this is not a positive story, like I say, first of all. And it's also, I was concerned, giving voice to someone who will rightfully piss a lot of you off, and me included, frankly. We get so frustrated when we read about cops who cross the line and how much more difficult it makes our job, and how much more difficult it makes our authenticity and our legitimacy in the public. And he, at one point, asks, who was I really hurting? There aren't any victims here. But he now understands that one of his biggest victims was law enforcement in general, that our legitimacy is challenged when these things happen. And when they happen on the scale that they did in Ruben's case, it is just devastating. Dozens, over 106 criminal convictions were overturned as part of this scandal. Murderers, rapists, drug dealers, those kinds of people walked free because they could not confirm the evidence that was put against them, and they were arrested by dirty cops. So the Rampart Scandal came out of the crash unit, which is the anti-gang unit in the Los Angeles Police Department in the late 90s. And eventually 70 police officers got wrapped up in this whole mess. They implicated 70 officers. 58 of those went before the administrative board. Only 24 were actually found to have committed any wrongdoing. 12 were given suspensions. 7 were forced into retirement or resigned, and 5 were terminated. Ruben is one of those who was terminated. Not only that, he was convicted and sent to prison for 16 years. And he faced a life sentence had he decided not to plead not guilty, or excuse me, if he had decided to plead not guilty, he would have faced a life sentence. So the Rampart Scandal, it goes back to 1997, in a seemingly unrelated event in which an undercover white officer is confronted by an undercover crash officer, Kevin Gaines. So the white undercover officer's name is Frank Laga. And he gets into a road rage dispute with Officer Kevin Gaines. Neither of them know each other or cops. And Laga's testimony is that Gaines, the black crash officer, pulled up next to him, was angry, displaying gang signs, and then pulled a gun on him. Liga called for backup, and before the backup could get there, Gaines pulls his gun. Liga shoots him in self-defense and kills him. And Liga's shooting is deemed reasonable because it was self-defense. But they find out that the crash officer that he shot, this Kevin Gaines, was working security on his off time for Suge Knight and Death Row Records, and that he was closely affiliated with the Blood Street Gang, and that Death Row in general was hiring lots of off-duty LAPD cops to serve as security guards. So fast forward just a couple of months, November of 1997, the branch of the Bank of America in Los Angeles gets held up, and it is committed by, eventually figure out that it's committed by an LAPD officer, David Mack. David Mack stole $722,000 in that armed robbery of the Bank of America, and he got sentenced to 14 years and 3 months in federal prison. Shortly after that, Officer Brian Hewitt of the Rampart Crash Division, a partner of Kevin Gaines, the road rage decedent, brings a 18th Street gang member into the Rampart station and beats him senseless inside the station. There's an investigation. He's eventually fired, and he is sent to federal prison for a variety of crimes, including distribution of drugs and conspiracy to commit murder. So out of all of these things, they form a task force to investigate some of the corruption that's going on at Rampart. You have a couple of common themes here. David Mack, Kevin Gaines, and Brian Hewitt are all engaged in this activity. When they pick up that Rampart crash officer Rafael Perez, who is also working off-duty for Death Row Records, has been stealing cocaine and robbing banks in his off time, just keeping himself busy on his days off, I guess. So they bring in Perez. He's arrested after 9 years on the job. He's arrested in August of 1988 for the theft of 6 pounds of cocaine from the Rampart property room. He was stealing cocaine from the property room, replacing it with Bisquick, and then he was selling off the proceeds on the street. So when he was arrested, he had lots of dirt on lots of different people, including my guest today, Ruben Palomares, and he tipped off investigators that Ruben was also dirty. And Ruben's story, we'll tell it in the interview, so I'm not going to tell it here. But he was part of this, and in some ways, short of murder, was probably the biggest. What he did and how much he gained, how much he netted out of this was probably bigger than anybody else. And the organization that it took for him to do what he did was bigger. Some of these guys were off on their own doing their own thing, and he talks about that. He knew other cops are dirty, but he actually ends up recruiting a crew that goes with him, and of course it all ends poorly. Ruben explains that a lot of this was the result of what he now believes to be post-traumatic stress, and you'll hear his story as to why he thinks that and the incident that happened. And he's got a valid point. I think he's got a legitimate issue that PTSD could be, or very likely is a major role in his life. But I still have a hard time with the leap from anger and resentment to robbing drug dealers and faking search warrants and doing all the thing and buying 10 keys of coke from an undercover informant. I struggle with justification for that, but at the same time, I try to remember I didn't grow up like Ruben. I didn't grow up in Boyle Heights, in one of the worst areas of LA. I didn't grow up surrounded by abusive male role models, and I didn't grow up in an area where my only two options were the gangs or law enforcement. So I really try, and I hope I succeeded in giving Ruben the benefit of the doubt, because it's often hard to talk with someone who's done something so egregious, and as he talks at the end, give forgiveness. even though I've never met him until today and he's never wronged me personally, there's a fair argument that he's wronged the profession irreparably. But he is now seeking to he's seeking forgiveness, and he's seeking to change, and he's seeking to teach others what those red flags are and those warning signs about that slippery slope from idealistic police officer to, as Kevin Gilmartin puts him, lax of omission to lax of commission. So hopefully you can enjoy this interview with Ruben. The audio is unfortunately not great. Our Skype connection was really stilted and kind of muddy at times, so it may be hard to hear him. But work through it, and you'll get a very interesting story out of it at the very least, and I think you'll get some lessons out of it as well, either good or bad. And let me know what you think. Would love to hear what you think of Ruben and his plight and his challenges. Shoot me an email, garrett@thesquadroom.net, or just hit me on Instagram or Twitter @thesquadroom, and let me know what you think of this episode. So here's Ruben Palomares, formerly LAPD, now on parole. Ruben Palomares, thanks for being on the show, man. You reached out to me in an email, and I people are going to figure out in not too long why it took a lot of guts for you to send that email. But thanks for being here.
Thank you for responding to the email and for getting a hold of me and for having me on your show. I appreciate it too.
Yeah. So, you sent me a story. You sent me, I put out this request to my mailing list asking for stories of people who wanted to share their experience in law enforcement. And the story you sent back, I, like 3 sentences in, was already laughing because I thought somebody was sending me a script from like 21 Jump Street, or had just made everything up, right? And that there was just no way that this was true. And it took one Google search for me to confirm your entire story. And it's a huge story. It's fascinating to me. So I want to tell it chronologically for people so that we get the whole breadth of it. So you were formerly LAPD. Tell me about what it was like for you growing up, and where did you grow up?
Part of my upbringing was in Huntington Park, South Central, and Boyle Heights, East LA area. Those are the areas where I grew up and went to high school in those areas too.
Okay, and so for people who aren't familiar with LA, I mean, South Central is kind of famous, but describe Boyle Heights and East LA for people.
Boyle Heights is predominantly Chicanos, Hispanic, Mexicans from different parts of Mexico. But you have the second generation Chicanos that are being raised by the parents who came from Mexico, and a lot of them are very lured into the gang lifestyle in that area. So it's pretty gang infested in that area. It's inner city. You have the projects, but then you have a lot of the areas, the surrounding areas. They're low income homes, and some of them are decent, but you have a lot of drugs and gang activity in that area.
So to maybe reinforce that for people too, shows like Southland take place. Lots of that, the gang scenes, and those take place in places like Boyle Heights and East LA.
Right.
Lots of movies are made over those areas. And then, in fact, one inspired by some of the events that you were in, which we'll get to later. So you grew up in a hard neighborhood, surrounded by gangs. And one of the things you mentioned in your email to me was a lack of a father figure growing up. What was the male role model situation like in your life?
My upbringing was I was surrounded by a lot of different uncles and friends, but most of them were machismo. They were real into the pride, the Mexican pride, and the tough guy attitude. Some of them were involved in gangs. Some of them were involved in drugs. My dad that raised me was involved in just drinking. He was an alcoholic and pretty verbally and physically abusive. My surrounding was tough because I had to adapt myself to that environment to survive. So I had to learn how to defend myself. I had to learn how to fight. I had to learn how to basically deal with beat up the bullies, beat up the bullies in the neighborhood.
Well, and you took that to a level where you actually turned that into a potential career, right? I mean, you're a Golden Gloves boxer, is that right?
Yes, I fought the Golden Gloves in 1985, I believe, and '86 twice in 2 years, and then I fought the Diamond Bell tournament. I won those. Uh, I fought a lot of good tournaments. I went all over the world, Australia, Canada. I fought the World Games. I got medals in those. I even fought the Police Olympics for LAPD and won the gold medal for that. And I think it was '96.
And so, to emphasize to people, I mean, this was a real talent of yours, and this was something that you had set your sights on making the Olympic team in, what was it, 88 and then in 92?
In '92, yes.
And sparring with the likes of Oscar De La Hoya, right?
Yeah, De La Hoya, Rafael Relas. I fought him. I had a lot of good competition that sharpened me up too. And my coaches were real good coaches too. They gave me a lot of their experience, so it was good and fun for me. I enjoyed it a lot. It helped me also direct focus my energy, my anger, my frustrations on in the ring. My opponents, the punching bag, the mitts. It helped me release it all in there. So it was good for me.
And it's kind of a positive end
The
result.
discipline,
Yeah, it's a lot of self-discipline to do something like that level,
it tough
especially at
people
such a
up,
young age.
right?
So, what then? Growing up in that neighborhood, it seems like maybe it's cliche, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you have two options in those situations, and you can join the dark side and join the gangs, or you can try and get out. And you chose to get out and actually just go the opposite way, and you joined the
Right.
LAPD. What was the motivation for becoming a cop when you grew up in such an environment like that?
I saw a lot of violence around me. Uncles, cousins get killed because of the drugs or gangs, and friends. A lot of them would get killed left and right. And to me, I knew that wasn't something I wanted. I couldn't stand that stuff. I couldn't stand what it stood for, the belief system behind it. So in my mind, being that I was boxing, one of my trainers was Al Stanky. He was LAPD, but he was also a good coach. He took Paul Gonzalez to the 1984 Olympics. He won the gold medal, and he was from East LA. Well, I was thinking was actually George Lopez. I was thinking they were all police officers, and I liked the way that they actually showed that they cared about us. They showed support. They showed that they were actually into helping us get out of that kind of environment and also succeed. And they were good role models to me. So in my mind, me being from that area, I thought to myself, I'd be a good role model and actually a mentor for for the young kids out here. Excuse me, as a police officer, because they're gonna understand that I can relate to them, and why not try to make a difference? Why not help the youngsters out here? And that was one of the big motivators.
So you saw the LAPD as positive role models in your life, and you had direct interaction with them. Uh,
Yes,
what when you started the academy, what was your goal?
uh, I knew that I wanted to work patrol, but really my goal was to go to SWAT. That was my goal, to go to SWAT. But in the academy, I mean, to me, the academy was fun, was challenging, but at the same time, being that I had the background with the martial arts and boxing, I was fit and I was already disciplined to the point where I've been pushed hard in my training. So to me, that was actually like it was fun, but I I know I could turn it up a notch more to push myself even harder while I was in there.
Hmm. And the process to get to Metro is quite intense and quite involved, even for veteran.
Competition is tough.
Yeah, for veteran officers. So you go to the LAPD Academy, and almost immediately after graduation, maybe it was in the academy, you can correct me, you get recruited to a juvenile narcotics unit.
Oh,
Now, sorry, go ahead.
actually, because of the academy, if you rank pretty high in your class, they let you pick the division you want to work in. And I wanted to go to South Central because I knew the area, I knew the guy. I wanted to just give back to that area, and I ended up going to South Central for probably 4 to 5 months, I believe. And
Hmm.
then the undercover narcotics unit, the BI team, called me and offered me the job to work the undercover high school program.
So you were 6 months into the job, and now, I mean, 6 months out of the academy, I didn't know my head from my ass. And here you're being offered a chance to work undercover in the narcotics unit in the juvenile narcotics. So tell me what was that invitation like, and what was your job responsibilities in that unit?
Well, first off, they don't want you to get too broken in as a patrol cop because they don't want you to pick up the bad habits or the habits that come with the patrol officer where you can give yourself away by just certain stance or communication skills. So they don't want to get you. They don't want to get you when you're already been in patrol too long. So they got me fresh, so I could still have normal civilian habits in the sense of, or I could be easily broken as an undercover cop because now they're gonna send you to a high school as an 11th grader and you're actually 23, 24, 22 years old, and you're going to send you to high school again, and you want to go as an 11th grader. And they want you to still have the slang, they want you to still have the kind of the street lingo, everything that goes with that territory. And they take you to the classroom, they start teaching you about the different types of narcotics, different types of report writing, identifying individuals, how to identify people you buy from without giving yourself away. Also, you go into little areas where they're selling drugs just to get you to practice being comfortable with asking, buying drugs in the street.
Hmm.
And they send you out there. You're dressed like a young kid, trying to fit the role. And then once you're ready for that, they assign you a detective who's probably equivalent to the sergeant two. He's your boss. Yes, you actually report to. He's gonna give your cases. Well, basically, you give him your cases. Every time you get a buy, you take him your paperwork, but that's who you report to. So you all get signed up to high school. You get an ID with from the DMV with your first name, but the last name is different. You don't want to give a different first name because you might forget your first name when you're working undercover and somebody keeps calling you by your fake name and you don't respond. That's kind of a giveaway. They might think, man, this guy ain't hearing me, or that's not his name. So you want to keep your first name. And then they send you to high school. Nobody knows that you're going to go in there except the principal, but the principal don't know who you are. They know that there's undercover there. And then you go become a student and relive it or replay it, whatever the case may be.
So you had to
Uh,
sit there in like 11th grade English class,
yeah,
suffering through these lectures.
yeah.
Uh,
You can still play the role as a little rebellious individual, but you
uh,
can't get kicked out of school. You can get a D or C, but don't get kicked out of school. They want you to stay in the program because they want you to buy dope off the student. They want you to see if you can link the kids to the suppliers to try to get the bigger fish. But they want you to play the role a little bit, not too exaggerated, where you're not gonna be able to make it in school, and just fit in.
so you even had to do like the homework so the teachers wouldn't know who you were.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm pretty good. I had help.
That's why I say, that's why
I
I
like
laugh like it's like 21 Jump Street when you email me. It was like, I really didn't even, I guess I'd never occurred to me that this existed. It sounds silly maybe, or maybe I just knew it did, but I've never understood the specifics of it. But
it exists.
so how,
It's a
so
hard job.
yeah, so I mean, and so now you're, 6 months out, and how long, I mean, you started working
Like
in this high
right
school.
away. I was working in the Verdugo High School, so right after that, I started fitting in with the individuals, and I started immediately. Guys started selling me weed. So I take the weed at packages and seal it and book it for evidence. And then my boss would put it in his in a separate file with identification because I would have to ID my that I bought my supplier without I not knowing his first or last name right away. I could say white shirt or this guy. That's how I would ID, and then we just put down the label until eventually I get the names, and then through the process of my investigation and my undercover work, I would get the names. But yeah, I'll start buying drugs. And one day, this one individual from South Central who was actually being bused to this high school told me that he if I wanted to buy PCP, and I said, yeah, sure. I said I don't use it. I said, but I have friends that use it, and I know I can get rid of it really, really, really quick. And I had to play that role. So he goes, well, tomorrow I'll bring you a container. But I said, how much you want to sell it for? And he goes, $80. I go, you know what? Just make sure you call me, page me, because back then we had the pages. This was in 1994. And I said, just go ahead and make sure you pay me ahead of time so I can take the money and make sure you're going to have it. So when we get to school, I'll just get it from you right away. So this is like October 29th, I believe, 1994. This guy pages me uh, late at night, and I'm at a friend's house. And being that I don't want to use the home phone, I go to the payphone down the street in Huntington Park. Areas that I knew, I was familiar with. I grew up in that area. I mean, Florence is a pretty busy street, a lot of traffic, lit up street. So I figured, I'm not in a bad spot. I'm in a safe area. Um, I go to the payphone. I make my call. I call the youngster and I say, okay, you're gonna have the stuff. He says, yeah, I'm gonna have it. Okay, tomorrow I'll see you in school. I'll buy it off you. As I'm doing that, I get a page from Donna, who at that time she's my girlfriend, and she's also working in the unit. Um, so I get on the phone and start talking to her. As I'm talking to her, two male Hispanic, older male Hispanic gang members, maybe in the 30s, uh, approach me. I see them coming down the street, and I'm kind of distracted by it because they don't look like they belong in that area. But I grip my Beretta. I grab it from the handle and I have it in my waist, my rear waistband, and I'm thinking these guys don't look like they're from this area. Well, I'm hoping they walk by me, but when they start getting closer to me, one of them walks by me, the other guy stops in front of me and he's playing with some money, some coins, acting like they're waiting for the payphone. So I'm trying to get rid of him. And me not thinking at that time, I use my right hand and direct him to another payphone down the street. And when I do that, the guy in front of me spins around and racks the action, puts his 9 millimeter Beretta on my 9 millimeter Smith and Wesson on my stomach, and jabs it into my stomach. And his partner closes me in, corners me to the left side. So now they both got me cornered in, and I have my back against the wall. And the guy's telling me to give up my wallet. He's going to kill me. Being that I know the area, being that I know how people act cooperative, I know if they find my badge and my ID and my wallet, my gun, they're probably still gonna kill me. That's my mindset. So I said to myself, I gotta distract these guys. I gotta take the gun from them, and I gotta do something or kill them before they find my gun and kill me or my badge and my wallet. So I'm trying to distract the guys. And Donna's on the phone. She's like, "What's going on over there? I want these dudes are robbing me." And she's like freaking out. She don't believe me. She's like, "Shut up." And the guy's talking some weird, crazy nonsense too with the gun jabbing my stomach. He keeps asking me for my wallet. So at one point, I have an opportunity. So I basically hit the guy to my left with my back fist. I hit him in the nose, and I grab the guy's barrel of the gun and move and try to peel it away from him. He grips it with both hands, and we start fighting for the gun. And we fall to the ground. As we're on the ground, I got the barrel pointed to his face, and he got the trigger and the handle area. But his partner starts kicking me on my back and trying to kick my head. So now I'm pretty much on my back, blocking kicks with one hand and trying to pull the guy's gun away with my other hand. Basically, I need another hand for that move right there, but I only have two. And the guy pulls the gun away from me, and now he points the gun towards my head and stands over me. He's pointing the gun to my head. I could see everything in slow motion. I can see the barrel. I can see the bullet inside the barrel. Everything's super slow motion. I'm able to grab the guy's kick, and he's kicking me, and grab it from I block it with one hand and grab from the behind me. I throw him over me. As I toss him over me, I use him as a shield for a split second. I'm able to get up. The minute I get up, his partner starts firing at me, and he hits my right leg, my thigh. I'm already drawing for my gun. I'm trying to move out of the way, and he fires again, hits my other leg, and he keeps firing. At this time, I'm already firing. I'm already chasing and hitting him. I hit him. I chase him. I hit him. I heard I shot his balls off. That's what I was told. He got arrested in the hospital. But I'm able to run and shoot and hit as I'm moving and breathing real slow, relaxing. I'm thinking just focus, hit. And I only fired 5 rounds. I ended up hitting the guy. They turn the corner. The driver picks him up and takes him to the hospital. I run back to the payphone. I call. I get on the phone, and Donna's not on the phone anymore. Her dad's on the phone, who's also a Pomona PD. And I'm like, "Hey, Dwayne, where's Donna?" Oh, she's running, scared, screaming, thinking you're getting yourself killed. And I go, "No, I got shot in my legs." He's like, "Well, call 911." So I'll call 911. And as soon as I finish calling 911, there's a blackout. That was another messy moment. There's a blackout. And so the police department, ambulance show up. They're across the street. I have my gun still in my hand. The gun's still smoking. The trigger's still pulled back. And I'm just like behind the tree waiting for these guys to come back because your adrenaline kicks in, everything kicked in. I'm super alert, ready. I don't even feel no pain in my bullet wounds. I'm not thinking about all that. I'm just thinking about let me get these guys if they come back. Let me make sure I finish them up. I'm fired up. I'm mad, and I was cussing at the guy when I was shooting him. I was cussing. I was like, "I'm gonna kill you, motherfucker." I was talking nonsense because I was fired up. I was mad and really real pissed off. Actually, they shot me. And I was like, "These motherfuckers infested me because I'm real hard on myself because I'm known to be a perfectionist, and I'm also technically black in martial arts. So these things to me is like this shouldn't be happening to me. You're thinking in your head, man, I should have been able to take that gun and do this and that. But now you're questioning everything you did, right away,
Hmm.
and you're mad. So the ambulance shows up. They take my clothes off. They end up finding the two entrance and exit wounds on my legs and give me some like seconds later. I'm telling, come on, let's go get these guys. I know where they went. I'm just talking out of adrenaline. I think it's everything because I'm just wired up. And then the like seconds later, I just feel this mean, intense pain on my leg. I'm like, oh man, this hurts. I said, give me something, give me some pain medicine right here. I guess it must have shot me with morphine or something because that pain went away super fast. Next thing you know, pain shut up. Yeah, but they took me to the hospital. They treated me. I get phone calls from different police officers, my partners, uh, my commanders. At that time, I think it was Willie Williams or something who might have been the chief at that time. Willie Williams from Philly.
Hmm.
He didn't go see me, but he sent one of his assistants to talk to me, call me, go visit me. And then one of my buddies, I get a phone call from one of my buddies, Art Lopez. I grew up around him. He retired as the chief of Oxnard PD, I believe. First thing out of his mouth is, "Why did you kill him?" I'm like, "Oh, come on, dude! I shot the dude. What the hell do you want me to do?" But it was just funny because you're young, you're a rookie, and the mentality of a gunslinger is already set in motion right there. And they gave me they gave me a medal, a police medal, and from there on, just things just changed for me. Everything started changing for me.
Was this considered an on-duty or off-duty shooting in terms of?
They considered it on duty because I was making a phone call to the kid to buy the drugs.
Right,
So
I
they
would think
considered it on
so.
duty.
I read something that it was they deemed it off-duty, and I wanted to how is that off? Okay, so shot twice in the legs during a drug deal, undercover juvenile narcotics. You're buying drugs out of the high schools. After that shooting, at the time? I mean, look, with hindsight now, as your gift at the time though, how do you think you dealt with that shooting? I mean, did you
Uh,
handle it well? Did you feel like it was
I
a hazard of the job as being a gunslinger, as you put it?
that gunfight changed me a lot in different ways, but it also caused me to question myself and be mad at myself because I could have responded to it different. I could have uh, got the upper hand ahead of time, and I could have probably smoked and taken both guys out without me getting shot. I One night quarterbacked the whole thing over and over because uh, I know better, and things were going on during those days that I should have been more aware. But it happened.
So this is the next question. Maybe is this is not for listeners. This is not a positive story, or end result is not a positive story. What do you remember being those first warning signs of trouble? What was it?
The thing about it is, when you're young on the job, or I think just overall, and you're raised to suppress your feelings, suppress your thoughts, suppress a lot of just suppress and not show emotions. You become like a robot. You become hardened, and that shooting made me harder, made me tougher, and to the point where I didn't address my true feelings what I was going through because that started triggering stuff in my mind where I couldn't stop thinking about the shooting. I couldn't stop thinking about what I could have done or what I'm supposed to do now, how to prevent it, how to be more alert, how to be ready for the next shootout, and this time win and not get shot, and when it's going to happen again. That's all I could think about,
Hmm.
and it was not an easy feeling because it's a constant reminder. You get the flashbacks, you get the certain dreams, you get the throughout the day. You're also already everyone you look at, you think you might be a suspect, you might be a guy with a gun, and so you're always thinking, let me be on my toes. You're thinking about how to prepare yourself next time, how to carry your gun different. It just so many things come to your head. You become uh, battle ready, but it's not. There's no peace, and you don't share that with anybody because even the patrol. I mean, I left that unit and I requested to go to Rampart division because I know these were busy divisions, and what I was under the impression that you work the best divisions, you're gonna get the best experience, and you're gonna be better qualified when you try to apply for Metro for SWAT for a specialized unit, they're gonna consider your package. They're gonna see your whole package. They're gonna say, this guy's squared away. We want that guy on our side. So I request you go to Rampart, and Rampart's a super busy, active drugs and gangs to the fullest. Like 8 to 7 square miles, 7 mile square radius. But it's nothing but different gangs from MS 13, 18th Street. The highest, more active, violent gangs basically were born there. That's where they started.
Hmm. So,
And oh, go ahead.
well, you said you had to toughen up, and you grew up not showing, signs of emotion and all that. Well, that stuff has to come out somehow, either
Exactly.
positively or negatively. So what started happening? I mean, was it?
I started getting resentful towards the department. I started getting resentful towards the brass when they would try to change policies and worry about liabilities instead of thinking about the officer safety issue. And I'm thinking these idiots don't know what they're talking about. Here we have a bunch of good officers risking their life every day to get a job done where there's nothing but violence and craziness. And they want us to worry about liability lawsuits. What about your life? What about your well being? And things started just things just started accumulating because in the process, uh, when I was in the unit, undercover unit, no one ever advised me about being able to visit a psychologist or someone that could actually talk to me about what I was going through. So I just shut it down. I assumed that was normal practice, and they sent me back to school in crutches to keep buying drugs. And of course, I was able to buy a bunch of drugs because I lied to the kids and made them think I was out there in the project buying drugs. And some guys tried to rob me. So that was a good pretext. It worked, but to me, I was still like constantly being tormented by the shootout, and I felt that the department doesn't consider the human side of a police officer. So I started getting bitter and resentful towards them. I said, forget these idiots. Here I am with my kids, and here I am putting my life on life for these idiots, and I'm helping these people I don't even know. And I started going back and forth, justifying it and creating my own ideas of what I'm going to do, how I'm going to survive this job.
Interesting.
And then,
I was interesting. So, I mean, a lot of us deal with criticism or frustration with command and decisions that, like you say, are made out of the interest of liability or public perception and not officer safety. But you really internalized that and really seems like
I went deeper.
went deep and let that
Yeah,
fester into a real anger. Was there,
yeah.
as often happens after stuff like this, alcohol abuse or drug abuse or
I
anything?
started drink. I started drinking alcohol, but I was drinking. I was womanizing. Violence was my drug too. I started working the gang units. I started working this other undercover unit called the Field Enforcement Section (FES), and I got into my partner got into another shootout there, and a guy had a shotgun. We ended up shooting him, and he ended up being killed in '97. And I started really enjoying that image, the way people looked up to me, the way my own coworkers uh, made me feel like I was that gunslinger, that image you portray, and really down deep inside, you're being tormented, but people don't understand the full truth because you're becoming a monster, really, because you don't have no remorse, you have no feelings for people, slapping people around, the gang members, pistol whipping and beating them down, and basically bullying them back. You get the victims to tell you what a gang member just did to them. The victim is scared to file charges, but the victim wants us to do something about it, and we're in the gang unit. So I'm thinking, well, we could still get rid of this jackass here. We could do this to him and get rid of him, and don't worry about the victim. Don't get the victim involved. Don't get the informant involved, so we don't get our informants killed. Because I've had one of my informants get shot one time, 8 times by gang members because he rolled on them and got me a bigger drug buzz. But he ended up getting shot 8 times because they ended up finding out it was him. Even though I tried to protect him, they still ended up shooting him. But the thing about it is, you start thinking, okay, victims need help. We're supposed to do our job. How can we do our job? You start getting mad at the whole process of the whole system, but you don't understand that there's a bigger picture. You miss the bigger picture. Like me, as a Christian man, I see the bigger picture. I didn't see it before. I was shut down. And I was, I guess you could say, blinded by my anger and stuff.
So it was an anger originally that started with your command, but then a frustration on the street of these guys never pay for their crimes, and the victims are being sometimes killed just for
Yeah,
talking to the cops and reporting it. And that I get a legitimate frustration that challenge of going out every day and feeling like you're pushing that rock uphill every day just for it to
right,
roll back down. What what was the first steps? You say assaulting the gang members, and so and you admit this openly that physically
right,
assaulting. I mean,
right,
you would street justice these guys.
right.
Um, was this something that was out of the norm at Rampart, or was it something that was there when you got there, or was it something that you just got swept up in that seemed like everybody was beginning to participate in? What was it?
That type of stuff is, I guess you could say, a common practice in a sense, but at the same time, um, things escalate. I mean, situations escalate to where it drives a person to assume that that's the way to deal with these hardcore gang members,
Hmm.
and we think that's the way to handle it. Um, I mean, it's not, but that's what we assumed back then. To get some order in the streets and put some little fear in these guys and let them know that we're running the street, not them, because we have to still make sure they're still afraid of us.
And was this something that I know you guys typically run two-man cars, but if you're in
Right.
the gang unit, was the whole unit sharing this ethos, or was it coming down from a sergeant, or where did it come from, or did you lead the charge?
I guess you could say that you start picking up ideas here and there from different individuals, and of course, um, this is something that you're gonna you're gonna be exposed to. You're gonna be exposed to certain things that you are not prepared for from when you're in the academy. You're not aware that you're gonna see a lot of stuff that's gonna open your eyes. At the same time, we have to look at the to me the big picture is officer safety, the risk, the hard work officers have. It's not an easy job. It's a hardcore job, and I think things can build up on a person, no matter who you are. You can start off as a nice, caring individual who just loves the job, loves people. But I think because some of us don't have outlets, don't have a strong foundation, and somewhere we could release our frustrations or anger, we end up either putting a bandage over stuff by coping with alcohol, coping with different means, and we start being consumed by certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Maybe again with the gift of hindsight, was there a lack of leadership that was not showing the correct way to deal with this, or was it that your leadership was showing you that this is the way to deal with it?
I guess you could say some of our leaderships were pretty intense in the areas of dealing with these individuals who we assume were the troublemakers of our community.
Hmm.
And it was the way that we dealt with them. That's what we were, uh, I guess, observing from others,
Hmm.
and it was a normal practice.
And I'll add, just as an outsider with some knowledge of what was happening in LA at the time, and that you guys were successful in a lot
It
of
was
ways.
successful, yeah,
That you put them under the pressure of that kind of contact,
right,
and the crash team, in LA, and those sorts of. I mean, crime went down, right,
right, right,
in the late '90s. Crime in LA plummeted, gang crime especially,
right,
uh, in large part because of what on the surface of the front page of the paper were just aggressive, proactive police enforcement, but
right.
maybe behind the scenes, this was the tactics behind the strategy. But you were getting positive reinforcement from that, in the fact that, or in the sense that it was working.
The community actually was happy. They enjoyed it. I mean, I know it's kind of messed up, but I'm gonna share a story because I know it's that was me, and I'm admitting to my own wrongdoing. But uh, there was a complaint from some resident of some narcotic activity right in front of the house. Excuse me. And we responded, me and my partner, and we gave him a break. We know selling the drugs, and I said, look, you got a break. Get out of here. We're getting complaints. Don't come back to this little neighborhood, or we're gonna come back and arrest you guys. Well, they ended up walking away. My partner and I observed, and we hid and waited for them to come back. And we know they're gonna play their role. They're gonna be slick. They're gonna come back. And granted, there's always other ways to deal with these guys, and just find a dope, and we can get rid of them too. But that way, even find dope in their pocket by our means, you know. So I said, this is wait for these guys, and they're gonna come back. So they come back, and they think they're slick. So me and my partner creep up on them, and I just start beating on them, just like beating them down and kicking their butts, and I kicked him really hard in the head. He knocks out, he faints. I'm thinking, oh no, I think I might have hurt, I might have killed this dude. So anyway, the guy gets up. Seconds later, run. They take off. The situation is resolved. The tenants call me back and say, hey, you know what? Keep doing what you're doing. It's working. They're not coming back. So to me, I was like, okay, it's good stuff.
So you're getting reinforcement that
Right.
this was correct. So it sounds like this was a slippery slope that
Very
eventually came to a crash again. You were off work you were recovering from a shoulder surgery from an
Different
on-duty injury.
Yeah, I
And
had two surgeries on my shoulder.
lots of us pick up overtime, pick up second jobs, pick up security details to pay some extra bills, help fund our activity. You went a different way, and you decided on a second job. What did you start doing while you were off on that leave?
What happened was I started getting real resentful to the department because I see one of my buddies got killed. Not to be that.
One of your friends in the line of duty, which killed in the line of duty.
In the line of duty, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was bothered by it because I thought to myself, this poor guy was young, he left his wife and kids, and I thought to myself, I wonder how far the department going to support his family now, and how far they're going to really help his family. And I started noticing certain things. That, I was back then. I was real resentful, and I would get mad. I was an angry individual. Back then, I had a lot of stored up anger and different bitterness. So I said, you know what? This is, to me, I love this job, but at the same time, if they're gonna tie my hands down, not let me do my job right, I said, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this job anymore. And then I went and got involved in the training unit. I became an instructor for the police department's tactics and self-defense because I have a intense background in martial arts too. I'm an MMA coach, so I'm able to mix the stuff to teach the departments of tactics and self-defense. So I was in this unit called the Arrest and Control School unit. And while I'm doing that, I'm getting ready for Metro. But I get injured on my shoulders while I'm training the guys. I get injured. And the surgery that they gave me didn't come out right. They ended up messing my shoulder up more. At this point, now I'm actually drinking. I started actually smoking weed. And that's, to me, that became like my medicine to relax me and calm me down because my mind would be spinning. It's like constantly thinking crazy stuff. And so one day, after this situation with Navidad and after the Rampart Scandal broke loose, I just started getting really like thinking to myself, you know what, this job is not fun anymore. Started thinking in my head because I was an adrenaline junkie back then. So then I started thinking to myself, these dope dealers, they make so much money. They get all this money. Look what they're up to us. I'm gonna start taking their cash. I'm gonna start taking the dope and the money. Let pay for their debt. Let them pay for my bills. And I said that the cartel beat them down or shoot them for not paying their debt because they're gonna get jacked by me. This all started in my head. I just started thinking like that. And actually, I ended up meeting this one person that I knew from a while back who was actually involved in the movements of narcotics with the cartels. And I said, hey, check it out, dude. I'm in a bad spot. I'm upset. I really don't do my job anymore. I don't know, but and this all, of course, all this builds up. It accumulated from so many events and so many situations, and I never really had an outlet, I never coping mechanism. So I said to myself, I'm gonna start doing that. And I got a hold of this guy and I said, hey, well, help me with the debt. I can collect the debt for you. Just any dope debt, but it's gotta be a lot of money. It's gotta be in the millions. Well, I'm not gonna do it. It's gotta be worth the risk. I said, if I'm gonna get busted, that'd be worth the risk. So of course, he ended up hooking me up with this one job, and I ended up taking his house down. I ended up inviting a couple of my partners, and we ended up hitting his house, and we got about almost $700,000 cash and like 15 keys of coke. And to me, and back then it was an adrenaline junkie rush, and I got hooked. It became like a wow, easy money. Look at these dummies, wow. I just didn't, I stopped caring at that point. And
So
that's where it started.
so explain to people, myself included, that leap from I get negative thoughts or thinking negative things, but then moving into action, but not just moving into action, but uh, to for people who weren't clear on what you just described, you were ripping off drug dealers,
Right.
and you set
Inflicting
up
that.
to do essentially a home invasion robbery on
Right.
behalf of a drug dealer,
Right.
and confiscated the other drug dealers
Right.
cocaine and 15 keys of coke and $100,000 cash.
700. Yeah, about 700.
700.
Yeah.
So in uh, trying to wrap my head around that. Um, you said in your description of the conversation with this guy that it better be worth it if you're if you're going to get pinched. What what was the value to you? What was there a dollar number that was worth it to you to roll the dice with this and risk it?
I
Or
just didn't think I was gonna get busted. I just thought, what, I'm gonna do one or two of these. I'm done. I'm gonna play it safe, and just, we're gonna find out about this. When just hit one or two hard heavy ones, and I'm done. And I'm just gonna find out about it. I thought I knew the system. I thought I knew the game. I thought I was pretty solid in in covering my track.
you,
But that's a big lie.
so you thought one or two of these, you'd cover it up, you'd be done, you'd be set, and you'd go back to just being a cop.
No, I was already dealing with the bullet wounds on my leg, my shoulder surgery, so I was gonna pinch enough and just open up my own. I had my martial arts gym too. I was gonna start running my
Oh, okay.
gyms, just let it all go.
So you're gonna retire from law enforcement on
I was
the
gonna leave it alone.
proceeds and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah,
So one of the um, I mentioned a name, and that name is probably very sensitive to you, but William Ferguson. He's somebody you testified against in court, and he was one of your partners during this time, and his brother
right,
was Long Beach PD.
right,
You mentioned that you invited some of your other partners to join you in this, and he was one of
right.
them.
Yes,
What was described to me, if you remember, that conversation between the two of you where you invited him in to do this? Because, I mean, there must have been some comfort level between you to float this idea, because you can't just, I mean, you don't know if this guy is going to turn you in, or
right.
if he's on the hook for something else, or what was that conversation like? Where you're like, hey, you want to go wear police uniforms and steal police cars from the LAPD Academy to make it look like a legitimate police raid and go rip off drug dealers? Was it that casual, or what was the how was that
Now,
vetting process?
Bill and I had some history because we worked together as partners in Rampart, and we both had dirt on each other. We had dealt with gang members our way, so I knew he was, in our mind, the way we categorize our individuals, solid, squared away individual who I know could be trusted to stay quiet and I guess probably um, be down for this. He was having problems with the department. They had him under a complaint in South Century's working patrol, and some gang members from South Central, some black gang members, ended up complaining that he took the house down to an informant, a house with drugs and weapons, and there was a legitimate takedown, but they were accusing him of fabricating part of the report, that it wasn't the way he did, that he didn't observe it, the informant gave him the info, he just moved in and took the house down. So they were looking at him at that, and then he had to work with this guy in Rampart who got fired from Rampart for beating up a 18th Street gang member. So because of that, he was and he and his wife was him and wife were separated. So I know he was struggling financially. She was going to divorce him. So I thought to myself, this guy here needs a little help. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you know what? Let me hit him up. I'm sure if he doesn't want to, he'll just keep it to himself and pretend he never had this conversation with me. So I did. I hit him up. I just told him, hey, look, I know I'm going through something. I'm not in a mood. I'm not in a good mood anymore. I'm not happy. I'm miserable. I'm starting to hate the promise the job. And I mean, just, they were negative. And I said, but I got this little deal here. and this guy wants to hook us up with a job to go collect the debt on some dealers that owe some money. I said, if you're game, and if you're down, it's between you and I, just keep it to ourselves and we'll just take this hit and see what happens. And he agreed. He agreed to go for it.
So um, you eventually testified to either completed or attempted about 40 robberies of this sort
Right,
and over $1 million in cash and drugs over these 2 years. And for people listening, like I touched on it a minute ago, your method was you would pose as the police on duty, as some legitimate.
right.
You were there for legitimate business. You would fake a search warrant, and you'd pull out. You would utilize cars that you essentially
The
stole
academy.
from the police academy. So you had
Right,
marked police cars,
right,
and you would show up, kick in the door, cuff everybody up, steal the dope, and then leave.
right,
All under the auspice of this is an official police action. And that was
right.
how you guys operated for 2 years, right?
At least, right.
I mean, you guys, you're busy. 40 robberies. um, how did you manage to fly under the radar so long?
I mean, at first I thought I was actually covering my bases, and I thought that the people around me were going to be trustworthy, and they were going to keep everything to themselves. But people started oh, showing off, exposing themselves. They started getting involved with the wrong crowd, and that was actually linking them to informants, and they didn't even know they were working with informants. They were like one of my cousins and his friend were moving drugs, and they started getting involved with these guys that had supposedly did time in prison, and they were introducing them to some Colombians supposedly to go buy some cocaine. I had nothing to do with that. There, I wasn't supposed to be there, but they invited me to make the connection so I could train these people and maybe collect the debt. So me, thinking, well, you know what, I'm gonna do these guys a favor. When we went down to San Diego, they were gonna buy 10 kilos of cocaine. It was a sting operation against my cousin and his friend, and I fell into their operation. I got hit right there in San Diego, 2001.
Yeah, so that's how you eventually got caught, right? Is
Right,
you got caught as a group of four in San Diego trying to buy 10 keys of coke off of the DEA.
right, yeah.
And that's when obviously everything came out and kind
Came
of
out
fell apart.
right,
So you're working in Rampart, and Rampart is a famous word in the Los Angeles area these days because of the scandals that came out of there,
right,
and um, it kind of blew up because
right,
of former officer now Rafael Perez,
right.
and he's the one who dimed you out to their IA before you got busted, right?
Yeah, he did. He said stuff about me.
So I mean, he was a dirty cop too, though, was and he just. Did you know each other were running crews like this, or what was?
We worked the gang unit together, so we knew each other. We've assisted each other on certain radio calls when it had to do with the gang unit, the
Uh-huh.
gang activity. But we weren't buddy buddies. We talked. We probably had drinks here and there once in a while, but we weren't like super tight. But yeah, he was in the same unit with me in the Rampart crash.
And did you know that he was doing his own thing on the side as well?
So we had no idea he was doing that other stuff. We knew that he was involved against one of the gangs in LA as a gang cop and doing his dirt there, which the way the gang unit was operating back then. So whatever he was doing back then, we knew that there was a code of silence and we disrespected each other, just left everybody alone and did their own thing. But we had no idea he was doing the other stuff that he got busted for.
So when you get busted by the DEA trying to buy 10 keys, that's not a small offense by any means. Um, when did it sink in that you were in trouble? Like,
I mean,
was it
oh, go
before the
ahead.
arrest and like you just couldn't stop? I mean, 40 robberies and $1 million in cash and drugs, that's enough to go start a business. What did you just get addicted to the rush of it all? And
Yeah, I think it was a rush. I got addicted to adrenaline. It was like and I'm gonna bring up that word. Post traumatic stress disorder kicks in, and you don't even know what it is because
uh
nobody talked about it in the '90s. and it's like I couldn't sit still and relax. I needed to get this fix. I needed to feed this monster inside me, and that's how I was feeding it. It was like I needed to get that adrenaline rush. I needed to get involved in something. I needed to go beat somebody down. I needed it just it was the weirdest drug addiction to me. That was my drug addiction, and I don't know why I couldn't just sit still and relax and hang out with my family. There was a really for me was it boggled me, and the only way I would relax was when I was home at night and I was drinking some vodka with some cranberry juice and maybe roll up a joint and smoke it so I could relax and calm my brain down because it was like spinning, going full speed ahead.
Were you nowadays? I mean, well, we'll get to that in a little bit. I want to kind of stick chronologically because there's so much here. So you're arrested. You don't even go to trial, right? You pled guilty to.
Well, I was actually at first I was thinking about it, but then when I started finding out with the feds how they play, I said, you know what, I'm pretty good to it. Well, then I found out that a lot of my co-defendants told on me, started telling on me. So to me, I said, well, I was being hard-headed. I was kept telling my attorney, where's the victims at? I said, bring me the victims. I said, there's no victims here. Let them tell me about the victims they victimized because I don't see these guys as victims. It took time for me to humble myself to realize that I was wrong. And I took a pledge and I was supposed to do the right thing. And here I am breaking it on myself. And it took me actually giving my life to the Lord and reading, starting to read the Bible and then starting to see my own issues, my own faults, and what brought me to prison and how all this stuff started building up because I never was honest with myself or honest with anybody about what I was really going through.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, um, it took about 2 years when I finally fully came clean on myself because I had basically everybody had turned on me, and I'm isolated. I'm a single cell in the hole for 5 years. 2050 almost 2008, I'm in a single cell in the hole by myself, and I'm noticing that everybody just abandoned ship. They abandoned me, and everybody's telling me. So I had no idea at that time that Bill he's supposed to go to trial. But when I started finding out, I said, you know what? I'm gonna do the right thing for me because I have to do the right thing. I have to own up to what I did. I gotta be a man about this, and I gotta basically come clean on myself. And that's what I did. I came clean on myself, and I pled guilty. I took a deal, and they gave me 18 years. I ended up doing 16 out of 18.
Which is, I mean, I know a lot of cops are listening to this, and they're going to think you got off easy. And realistically, if you had pled not guilty, you were looking at a life sentence, right? I mean, that's potentially
Right.
what could have
I
happened
could have
if
got
you.
100 years. I could, yeah, life sentence. Yeah.
And so, I have to think that there's a lot of people who think, well, 16 years, that's not much for making my job that much harder and convincing people that we are on the right side. But 16 years is 16 years, in federal
It's a long
prison,
time.
in the hole. It's a long time.
I did a lot of time in isolation. I did a lot of time in the yards too, but to be a cop and then go to prison, it ain't a fun ride. You're gonna do your time, you're gonna do your time. You gotta man up and like people say, you gotta tie your nuts up and be a man about it, face the music. Because I know myself, I know how I was, and I know what I could do, what my potential. I know that I'm a different individual without my relationship with God as a Christian. So in prison, I was prepared to deal with whatever was coming my way, because I knew I was an ex-cop. I knew I was gonna find out, and I wasn't gonna sit there and BS anybody and tell, oh, I'm here for tax evasion. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna be straight up with these guys in prison because I'm not gonna be hiding and running and because if they to me any weakness you show any form of weakness in prison they're gonna take advantage of that and especially if you're an ex cop they're gonna try to beat you down or even trying to get beat up or raped in prison that's for sure and or stabbed. So in my mind I'm thinking to myself I'm gonna be straight up with the shot callers. So when I went to prison I would meet the shot callers in the yard and I would tell the Mexican shot callers, hey look I'm here for this. I'm from Mexico, but I'm not running no prison politics. I'm an ex-cop, and this is what I went to prison for. This is what I did. I'm a Christian. I'm minding my own business. I'm trying to stay out of trouble, and I'm trying to change my ways. I ain't trying to get involved in nothing. I want to do my time, and they respected that because I wasn't sitting there lying to them and saying, "Oh, I'm here for this, for that," because they're going to find out. There's cell phones in prison. They're going to Google your name. They're going to find out what you're in there for. To me, that's a coward move in a sense, but at the same time, they're gonna look at that as a form of fear, disrespect, cowardice, and then they're gonna try to bully you, punk you, and then you're gonna have to do something. You gotta be ready.
Yeah. So do you think 16 years was fair, or do you or and do you think that that was the right time and the sufficient amount of time, and that you used that time to? Whoop, sorry.
Oh, my bad. Sorry about that. Let me turn this off.
So, was 16 years enough time? I mean, I can't imagine anyone's going to answer that with no, I needed more. But do you feel like your penance has been paid to your brothers in blue, like law enforcement as a profession, to the public, to your family, if that was an issue? And what are you doing now to really put this behind you? And not only just not put it behind you, but that's the wrong word. Use it to inform the rest of your life, but also to give back.
To me, well, being in there gave me a lot of time to think and reflect and go back to why I signed up for this job, why I took that oath, why I put my life on the line to do a job that a lot of people don't like. Some and the ones that love it are doing it when they're putting their life out there, they're putting that, they're risking it. Uh, I thought a lot in prison about what I'm going to do to redeem myself, but also to give back and help the men and women in the uniform that are actually facing tough times and are dealing with situations. I did a lot of researching for PTSD. I studied a lot of Christian counseling courses, but I got a lot of help for myself while I was in there because we all know I need more help than anybody. I oh sorry, I contracted out a professional Christian psychologist and they started counseling me and dealing with my PTSD. I spent hours and hours with him in sessions. And then I started giving back while I was in prison. I started helping out people that I met in prison that were actually military guys, former officers too, that got in trouble from the ranks of chiefs to lieutenants, captains, sergeants. I met a bunch of them in there and military guys. I started doing classes for them in prison so that I could give back and start playing that seed. And me myself, I don't believe in running or hiding from my mistake. I believe that if God put me on this earth for something, and yet at the time, there's going to be different views, different opinions, and different people who could be mad and hateful and say, you know, that guy should have been there forever. He did this, that. And I'm going to put it in God's hand. I put my life in God's hands, and I did. I put my trust in God. And I said, whatever God thinks I need to do so I can my life, my act right, get my life right, and come out of here and do something positive. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to face it. 16 years is a lot of time. It is. But I met guys that are in there for life. There's guys that are in there for 30 years. And I want to praise God because I only got that time, you know, because they could have given me a lot more time and they wanted to. And to me, you know, I put my faith in the Lord. And I humble myself. I said, you know what? I'm not going to be that hardcore dude anymore. I don't want to be that guy. That guy's the one that gets me in trouble. That guy's the one that don't give a rat's ass and just does things and ain't afraid of the consequence, ain't afraid about what's going to happen. And that's not the guy I am anymore.
So for people listening who maybe are specifically in positions of supervisory roles, and also people who just want to be aware of themselves, there seems to be a chain of events, maybe not events, but red flags for people that maybe someone needs some extra attention in a positive way, some positive intervention. But it seems like financial stress has come up. Both that was an issue for you. It was an issue for your partner, Bill Ferguson. It was a steady theme of financial stress. Marital stress seemed to be come up a lot, and then on duty incidents, life threatening events. You know, your life.
Right.
I mean, you are lucky to have survived that robbery at the
Sure,
payphone,
yeah.
and you know, I agree. Back in the '90s, PTSD was not something addressed, especially in a unit like Crash or gangs. You were not. You know, I can see how you were never encouraged to open up and speak up about those things. You know, I think we've gotten a lot better in those 20 years. The policing in general is much better at understanding that these things are real and they affect us, and that not addressing it devolves into these exact things. Um, but what are some of the things you would like if you could sit with a group of sergeants or lieutenants, frontline supervisors? What would be your advice to them on how to take care of their people?
I think the most important is understand that we're human. We're not robots. We do have emotion. We have to learn. There's got to be a system within us that we have to have more courage to step up and tell our supervisors, hey, look, kid, I'm struggling. I'm even having merit problems. I'm having this problem. I want to address it because I want to overcome it. And there's got to be tools. There's got to be education on that kind of stuff so people could understand that there's a way out of it so they don't keep taking steps deeper into that side that's going to move them into making the worst decisions in their life that they're going to regret. Um, I know we have a high rate of suicide in the department. We have a high rate of alcoholism, of pill popping, of divorce. You name it, it's there. It is unfortunately we're the ones that's supposed to be in the front line and putting our life out there for others to help others. But who's helping the men and women in blue uniforms? There's not enough of that. And even in the military, same thing. To me, um, I believe that if I was able to talk to any leader, or even from the rookies in the academy to the boots to the to the guys that are just still going through probation, excuse me, they're still going through probation period. We want to let them know what kind of signs to look for, but also let them know that they have to have more support from their own coworkers or peers because a lot of the peers that are going to badmouth you. If you tell another person, hey, look, man, I'm having some issues with my wife and I'm going through right now. And some of them, because everybody wants to be that tough guy, everybody wants to be that hardcore, hardest individual sometimes. They think that makes you a real hardcore man. And that's a big lie because that doesn't make you a human being. And a lot of times, um, these guys will make fun of their own coworkers because they're having to show, oh, he's a, what a wimp, what a sissy, what a coward, fag, and that's not the way you're gonna treat your own brother, your own partner, because that same guy's hurting, and that means you should be able to reach out to him. But we ain't brought up that way. We ain't taught that way. We're taught we gotta be killers, we gotta be this, we gotta be that. You gotta have a balance in your life. A lot of officers don't have that balance. They're stuck in that frame of mind because there's no outlet for them. They have no idea there's help. They have no idea that they could talk to somebody, and they don't trust. We don't trust because it's always us against them, or them against us. If we're in the field, we're out there, putting the bad guy away. So we think everybody's our enemy. Sometimes nobody likes us, so we shut down. And that's bad. I believe that our supervisors should have better training in understanding their the police officers, understanding and listening to them. And don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to be real with yourself. First of all, because you're going to hurt your marriage, you're going to hurt your kids, you're going to hurt your career. A lot of things going to happen because you chose to stay quiet. You chose to shut down and suppress. And it's bad. Look what I had to go through, and that's fine. Me now, I want to be able to help out. I want to be able to give back.
Well, coming on here and sharing your story, I think is a great step. You're still on parole. You've got a little bit left. What's your grand plan from here forward?
Uh, and I'm, like again, trusting the Lord as a Christian. I'm gonna leave it in God's hands to open doors so I can have speaking engagement. I want to be able to talk, educate officers, share my story, share the signs, share uh, the could have, would have, like in reality, what I could have done ahead of time to prevent me from getting deeper into this frustration, this anger, the forgiveness steps. I should have taken forgiveness process. Nobody teaches forgiveness either. And to me, I grew up not knowing forgiveness from my childhood to an adulthood. I was never taught about forgiving people, what it is to forgive, what it is to let go, not hold on to the resentment, not hold on to the bitterness, the hatred when people do something to you, because it accumulates and it tears you up, it eats you up, makes you an angry individual, makes you basically insensitive, but it also makes you a monster at the same time because you lose your sensitivity to other people's and you're always angry about everything. And it's not good for you. It's not healthy.
Yeah, I think coming on and here is a great start. I like the idea of teaching forgiveness. Ruben, thank you for your time and sharing your story. It's like I said at the beginning, it was hard to wrap my head around it. I knew about Rampart, I knew about Rafael Perez and his involvement. I knew the story of you, I just didn't know your name. And it took a lot of guts to send that email to me and be willing to speak about it openly and honestly and critically. So I appreciate your time and the insights you gave in here. And I'm glad that you've found some peace in that you have some understanding of why this uh, these events took hold
Right.
of your life. So I hope that moving forward for you, you're able to use that and grow. And I think that if you stick with this goal of openly educating police officers on the dangers of that slippery slope, then you're going to do a great service for the rest of us.
I appreciate your time too, and opportunity for me to be able to share what I have because I mean, this is what I'm waiting for the moment for me to share it. And like you said, I do want to give back and help others so they don't get stuck in a situation like mine because it ain't nothing fun. It sucks being in prison, and as a cop, especially ex-cop, I guess. That's the worst feeling. You have to wake up every morning wondering when someone's gonna try to stab you, or when you have to defend yourself. It ain't a fun feeling, but it's that life. You have to be ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, Ruben.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So Ruben Palomares, interesting story. Still conflicted, uh, but a guy who I do legitimately think is trying to make things right. And who am I to judge? I think his story is a good warning sign. There's lots of good red flags, and it's just a good story because it's true. All of it's true, and we didn't even get into the depths of the intricacies, and I didn't know how comfortable he'd be talking about stuff that he may or may not have testified to because I didn't read all the transcripts. Um, so my point was to stay on the story of that slippery slope and corruption and how it can happen. Not to get into the nuance of what he was doing, but I highly suggest if you're interested in this stuff that to just all you got to do is Google his name and LAPD, and the stories and the LA Times articles will come up. And I'll post a couple in the show links too. So you can go to thesquadroom.net slash episode 50 to look at all the notes from the show and some of those links, and you'll see more there. If you want to support the show, a great way to do that is audible.com is, of course, audiobooks. And if you're sick of my voice and sick of the bad Skype connection from the show, apologies again, and you want to expand your mind a little bit, audiobooks are a great way to do that. Audible, of course, being connected with Amazon is, I think, the biggest supplier of audiobooks out there in the world. And if you go to audibletrial.com/the squad room, you can get a free 30-day trial and a free audiobook of your choice just for trying the program out. No commitment to buy, nothing like that. And you can explore all these different great books out there. I have so many I'm reading right now, hard books. I'm having a hard time thinking of one to recommend. But I will go back to the one that Greg Amundsen suggested in the last episode, Man's Search for Meaning, which frankly, I don't even know if it's an audiobook, but I'm sure it's out there. But that book will change lives. So the Man's Search for Meaning is my recommendation for this week. Garrett at thesquadroom.net is my email. The Squadroom at the Squadroom is my Instagram and Twitter. Hit us up there. You can sign up for a mailing list at our website, thesquadroom.net, or you can even text the Squadroom, all one word, to 44222 and get signed up for our mailing list there, just right from your phone. Until next episode, please take care of each other. Please stay safe, and please look out for each other. Look out for these warning signs in your partners, the drinking, the marital problems, the financial problems, the on-duty incidents that aren't being dealt with. Pull people to the side, check on them, see how they're doing. Let them know that they've got someone to listen to, because this job can be isolating, and this machismo that we all seem to feel we need to present can get dangerous if you let it. So until the next time, take care of each other and stay safe.